Hi everyone, Sarah Picaro. Today's video is going to be about manipulation tactics and how to know if people are using manipulation tactics on you and then how to stop from being manipulated. So you may or may not realize or find the impact that being manipulated has had on you, unfortunately, until long after you've been manipulated and you look back in hindsight 2020 and you think, wow, I saw all the red flags. Why didn't I run away? Well, maybe you thought it was a parade. I've heard that meme before and it's quite funny. And I've actually had other clients say that. Well, I thought it was a parade. And if you thought it was a parade, you probably did feel like it was fun in the beginning because there was a game being played, and games are fun, but not these kind of games, not these manipulation tactics and games that you end up participating in and playing yourself. So there may have been a part of you that was playing the game back and got trapped in that web of playing the games, the game of manipulation. So in the hands of an abuser, manipulation is one of their favorite games, hands down, but it's not a fun game to play, especially for the person on the receiving end of that. And emotional manipulation is a really important topic. So that's going to be the point topic of today's video and what we're going to discuss. So we're going to be going over different ways that emotional manipulation and abuse can be impacting and influencing you. Obviously, the first goal with everything is awareness. It's awareness, knowledge, and education on these topics. And that's the point of today's video. So once you become aware of these things, then the next step is to take action, is to reprogram, rewire, rediscover who you are once you have the education, knowledge, and awareness on how these topics and things have been impacting you, so that you can get to a place internally where you respond. You don't react to these things in the same way anymore. And when you do that, you don't continue to get caught and stuck in that web and stuck playing the games. But if you don't change your own internal patterns, habits, behaviors, and programs, you will inevitably continue to get caught and stuck in that web and playing that game every time. And I doubt you want that. That's probably one of the reasons why you're here. So the abuser in your life will always take advantage of vulnerable people. You, at least in some degree, were vulnerable if you were with an abuser, and they were able to use that vulnerability against you and use it to manipulate and abuse you. And vulnerable people are susceptible to these things, and the manipulator and abuser will use that vulnerability against the other people in their life to get what they want from them so that they don't have to take responsibility and do it themselves. It's like, here, do this for me. And the victim or the other person says, okay. I mean, maybe not consciously or knowingly, but unconsciously, they end up playing these games and getting trapped in this manipulation web. So they're users. Manipulators and abusers, they're just bullies, and they're people who take advantage of others, more than likely you in that case, certainly me in so many ways in my past. So it is so important to understand these things and the games that are being played. And it's more importantly, however, if you want to put a stop or an end to these games, to learn and discover what it is about you that allowed these certain behaviors to go on in your relationships. If you want to change any of this, because if you don't change within you, if you don't change internally, then nothing will change externally, and you will continue to find yourselves in these types of relationships and find yourself carrying around the heaviness, carrying the weight, carrying the burden, carrying the blame, carrying the shame and the guilt and resentment, and all of those things that result from being with an abuser and from playing these games and being from being manipulated continuously. So it is so vastly important to be able to recognize if someone is manipulating you and then nip it in the bud. So a lot of times you may not recognize the red flags. You go right past the red flags. You don't recognize it. You don't see it. You're unaware of it until it's too late. And then you get to that place in hindsight, looking back, and think, oh, yeah, I guess that was a red flag. And right away, I mean, all of those red flags have markers. Your internal dialogue, your gut, your intuition will work for you. It does work for you. But a lot of us have it so deeply buried or just so dialed down that it's barely like a little blip on the radar. And that's the thing that when you begin to work on healing those internal unhealed wounds within yourself, that dial gets turned way up so that you are aware of it, you can identify it, and you don't blow past it when you are being manipulated or when something is off. You don't think that, oh, look, a parade. You go, oh, a red flag, I'm out. So it's important to be aware of these signs and to make a choice then with that. I mean, you have a choice. You're either going to do something or you're not going to do something. But you need to become aware of what it is within you that allowed this to continue in the past so that you can take that, learn from it, grow from it, and change it so that you don't end up in these same places in the future. So learning from that, not beating yourself up over it, and growing so in the future you can make different choices next time. Chances are it's going to happen again because it's a crazy world out there. So it's not that you'll never run into a manipulator or an abuser again, but you won't be the same person after having done the inner work to heal. So you're not going to be that person that just blindly falls into this hole and doesn't know how they got in there or even how to get out. And this may not, I mean, it may happen again with the same person. It may happen again with different people. Chances are both will occur. So, or perhaps a different situation. But either way, when you get to that place, you have the ability to make a different choice if you have begun to do the inner work to heal. So, you can make a different choice, one that's more beneficial and more positive to you, not a different choice like, oh, just date a different person. That's not what I'm talking about here. At the end of the day, if you want to truly change, if you want to truly break through and transform, you've got to get to the root of what's going on within you internally, because that is what's reflecting externally. What is it about you that allows others to walk all over you, to manipulate you? And why do boundaries feel so impossible or so difficult to put in place? Because boundaries are there for you. I mean, boundaries should be your best friend. Boundaries are there to comfort you, to protect you. Boundaries should be giving you a sense of power, not to abuse the power, but a sense of power, a sense of energy, a sense of happiness, a sense of contentment. Boundaries are there to protect you. But if you're not comfortable with setting them, especially with abusers and manipulators, then you might as well get comfortable with being uncomfortable and with continuing to fall in that trap and being manipulated and abused. So they all go hand in hand. And it's important to first realize and recognize what abuse looks like, and then make those internal unconscious changes within yourself so that you don't continue to allow this to impact your life in that way any longer. So lots of different feelings and emotions, right? When you're being manipulated and abused, guilt, blame, shame, anger, frustration, resentment. Imagine they're all best friends. They're not the kind of best friends that you want to have, but they are the friends that if you have, you will continue to be manipulated and abused and find yourselves in these traps and in these situations and stuck and not understand how to get out. If you feel guilt for things about the past that happened to you and things that you allowed to happen to you, maybe you blame yourself or you label yourself as a loser or pathetic or ridiculous or helpless. And with that, you probably carry the weight of a ton of shame on your shoulders, right? I've had people that I've worked with say, Sarah, it feels like I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. Well, you are if you're carrying around all that blame and shame and anger and resentment, feelings of helplessness. And this is so impactful for people who've been continuously abused and manipulated. And again, if this is you, then what that identifies within you is that something internally needs to change if anything externally is going to change. So again, guilt, blame, shame, anger, frustration, resentment, they all go together. And they are the number one tactic that emotional abusers, that narcissists use against other people. And if you constantly hear things from the narcissist or from the emotional manipulator, if you hear words, you hear phrases like, well, if you don't do this for me, then I'm not going to do that for you. Or what do you mean you're not going to do that? I thought you loved me. I would do it for you. I thought you cared about me. Well, I guess you don't. Well, those words and those phrases are part of the emotional manipulation. They're part of the abusive tactic. When they say, well, I would do it for you. I would do anything for you. I love you. The thing is, those are just words. Those are not actions. And when words and actions are not aligning, they're not matching up, they're not connecting, then those are just words and phrases that are used in order to manipulate and abuse you and get you to do something for them. So they're part of the gaslighting tactic, which is the number one manipulation tactic. And those are words and phrases that the emotional manipulators and abusers will use against you, will say to you to get you to feel guilty, to get you to blame, that cause you to blame yourself. And with that, you carry around the heaviness of shame if you don't go with those things that were said. So abusers will blame you, they will shame you, they will guilt you into doing something that benefits them, but not you. There won't be anything in it for you. So there's only something in it for the abuser and manipulator. And in a healthy relationship, in a real, genuine, open, healthy, connected, loving relationship, you won't feel those things. In a healthy relationship, you're not manipulated. There's a balance of love and respect and understanding in a healthy relationship. And the other person would not want you to feel guilty or to blame yourself or to feel ashamed. Anyone who truly respects you would not intentionally say those things that cause you to knowingly feel that way. And of course, it may happen in healthy relationships, but more unintentionally. Maybe it's a tone or maybe it's a mood that someone's in. They wouldn't do it intentionally and they wouldn't say those things with harm in mind. A healthy person will respect your answer, will respect your feedback, will respect your thoughts and your opinions. And if you say no, they won't make you feel bad for saying no. They'll say things like, yeah, I get it. I totally understand. No worries. And then they won't hold it against you later on. Or you work together and you come to a compromise or a conclusion together on how a certain outcome can be seen, had, or achieved. But someone who is an emotional manipulator and abuser, they won't do that. They won't respect your boundaries. They won't collaborate with you. They won't work with you to try and figure out how you can get this thing done together. They just want you to do it all for them so that they don't have to. Keep in mind that an emotional manipulator and abuser is like a childlike adult. They look like an adult because they're in an adult body and they're grown, but they behave like a wounded, upset, fearful, scared, reactive child who never learned boundaries, who never learned to respect others, who never learned to accept no as an acceptable answer, and is someone who is extremely selfish, extremely emotionally immature. And that's why they look like an adult, but they act like an immature child. And there are so many things that you can see in this realm. And what you'll notice, the biggest thing is when you try and say no or try and speak your voice, speak your mind and use your voice with them, there will always be backlash. There will always be arguments. Whatever you say, they will take and turn it into, twist it into, have it become an argument, even though you feel like, wait a minute, I'm not trying to argue with you. There will always be a temper tantrum that's thrown on their end because they're not able to get from you what they want. So they will act like an adult, well, look like an adult, but act like a child. There will not be any congruence with them. And you'll find that if you identify yourself as a codependent, a people pleaser, a fixer, you love fixing people, you love seeing the good in everyone and avoid seeing the bad, chances are those internal unhealed places within you are ones that lack security, lack confidence, lack the ability to trust your intuition and your gut. That dial that we were talking about earlier has been turned way down. And more than likely, with that, with feeling insecure, with feeling not really confident in yourself, unsure of yourself, not good, you're more easily susceptible to carrying around the guilt and the shame and the blame and lugging it around with you. And then it impacts everything you do. It's like that lens and filter that you begin living through. So that's why you feel this darkness and this heaviness with you. And if you're with a narcissist, they're also codependent. So if you're codependent, the narcissist is codependent. You've got these two people with these inner voids and these unhealed wounds that are dependent on each other. And the emotional abusers, happiness, they're never really truly genuinely happy, but their happiness is determined by who they can take advantage of, by who they can use, by who they can abuse. That's why it's called supply. And that is what thrills them. That's what butters their toast or butters their biscuit. That's what excites them and elates them, is to see how far they can go with people, how far they can take it, what they can get from others. And they will never give anything in return, except for arguments, except for backlash, except for putting it back on you as I didn't do anything. This is all you. That's what you can accept in return. And if you do identify as a codependent and you're in a relationship with an abuser, again, until you do the unconscious inner work to heal, you are going to continue to find yourself stuck in these patterns and stuck in these feelings and stuck in these horrible emotions. So chances are, you know, you're a good person, or you strive to be a good person. You try your hardest to do the right things. And you may be thinking in your mind, well, if I'm such a good person, shouldn't I have good experiences in my life? And shouldn't I be connecting with other good people? Right? Doesn't that energy attract? So if that's true, why am I stuck in these situations? Why do I continue to find myself in these environments and relationships? Well, again, there are inner unhealed things within you, places within you that have you feel that you're not enough, that have you feel that you lack confidence. And maybe on the outside, you can fake it and appear to be confident, but internally, that dialogue that's running says, I don't know. And it's constantly doubting, second guessing, questioning. And then it leads you to feeling and carrying all those emotions with you. Well, the narcissist and the emotional manipulator and abuser, they have that same internal tape and dialogue running. So that is actually what's connecting. It's so much more of an unconscious connection, not a conscious connection. So that's one thing to be aware of and to keep in mind. And the problem with codependence is they have that internal dialogue, but they continue to overextend and continue to overgive because they want other people to be happy, because that's what they want for themselves too. So they overgive. They will go to the ends of the earth to try and please others, to make other people happy. And emotional manipulators and abusers, they're never going to have that happiness cup filled up. It can't be filled up externally. It has to come from within. It has to be filled up internally. So emotional manipulators and abusers, they're going to continue to take and take and take and take so long as you're giving, 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 giving. And you're going to find that however much you give is never enough, because you're giving to the wrong person. You need to turn that around and give that to yourself. So you may stay in these situations and relationships because you tell yourself, well, I don't give up. I'm not a quitter. I'm not a loser, even though internally you may feel like it. You will go to the ends of the earth to please these people. And when you do that, you feel drained, you feel exhausted, and these people will continue to come back for more and more and more. And you may find yourself at a place where you simply can't take it anymore. And you're saying, I have nothing more to give you. There's nothing more I can do. And feeling heavy, feeling drained, feeling exhausted, feeling completely depleted emotionally, because you are. But they're going to continue to come back because in the past you have given, 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 but you may get to this place where you say, no, enough's enough. They're going to come back. And you may find in that place when they come back, you have a really difficult time saying no and standing up for yourself and standing your ground, because emotional manipulators and abuser know that any engagement from you is an open door. So even if you say no, they go, yeah, whatever. They've said no a million times. Watch this. And then they continue to try even harder to continue to get from you what they used to be able to get from you so easily, especially when you put a boundary in place. They love testing that boundary. And again, I can't stress this enough. Until you do the inner work to heal those inner wounds, to completely transform, to take those lessons from the past, to heal and to grow, then nothing will change. And this has to be done at the unconscious level. You can do work at the conscious level, and it is helpful, it is beneficial, but it's not as effective and it's not as long lasting, because you'll find that you'll feel better for a bit, for a time, but then you get sucked right back into that same cycle. And you'll go back to feeling the way that you did when the emotional manipulator and abuser was using you, even if they're not in your life anymore. Because again, it's about that internal tape and dialogue that's running in your mind that makes the most profound impact in everything. So just doing the work consciously takes a lot more time, takes a lot more energy, it takes a lot more effort, because consciously you're limited. There's a filter in your mind that's the same filter that filtered out those red flags and said, no, it was a parade, it looks like fun. There's a filter in your mind, and consciously we can think about what we think it is, or what it might be, or what it could be, and we can say, well, I know it's because of this relationship, because I wasn't like that before the relationship, or I think it's because of it's like some stuff that happened in my past and my childhood and my upbringing, whatever. But consciously you're limited, right? And you can journal and you can dialogue and you can try to meditate your way through that, but you're going to hit a place where you're stuck, and you're not able to get to the very core and get to the root of it and break free from that. So until you address it unconsciously, you may find that you make a little bit of progress for a time, you feel better, but it's so much work, it's so much energy, and it's taking forever. So you need to unconsciously get to the very tip, very core, and very root of this, and not just spend a lot of time, money, energy, and effort just addressing the symptoms. That's the number one thing that I see with people that I work with. They have spent so much time just addressing the symptoms, the surface level things. They haven't gotten deeper and addressed the very core and root of this. And I mean, with everything, right? The mind learns by repetition. So if you're continuously repeating to feel like you're a failure, your mind is going to believe that you're a failure and have this life of lots of failures. And that is actually what the manipulator and the abuser uses, because they use those failures against you to continue to use you. It's a challenge for them, and they love it, and they know, they can sense it, they can see it within certain people. So here's the beautiful part. Emotional manipulators and abusers will end up, they will, if you do the inner work to heal, they will end up being your greatest teachers, your greatest gift, because they trigger you. And triggers are teachers. So abusers, they can look like a coach, they can look like a teacher, they can look like a mentor to you, because they're going to poke you, they're going to trigger you, they're going to prod you. And where it hurts, those places where they poke and they prod and it hurts, that's beautiful, because that is what needs healing within you. That's what needs more work. That's what needs to be addressed at the root cause. So if they're continuing to do that, if it's someone who's in your life who continues to do that, like a parent or an ex or a boss, whoever, it's like a gift. So you can say, wow, thank you. Thank you for showing me where I need healing within me. And if they give you backlash and abuse, which they will, every time they do that, they're actually giving you an opportunity to stand up for yourself again. And because the mind learns by repetition, the more they poke, prod, and try to trigger you, the more practice you get standing up for yourself. And the easier it gets, the stronger you become. So again, this has to be paired with you unconsciously getting to the very core and root of all this. So instead of seeing it as this, I can't do anything about it. What if you were to see it as, instead of why do they always do this to me, as a gift, and say, thank you for doing this to me continuously, because you always do this. I always have the ability to learn and grow and get stronger each time. And when that's partnered again with you doing the unconscious work, then the transformation actually happens a lot faster. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it truly does. So it's a good thing, because when you begin to do the inner work to heal and you begin to understand why they were in your life in the first place, what they're teaching you, and then you get to take those opportunities and learn from them and see where within yourself needs more love, more gratitude, where within yourself you need stronger boundaries, where within yourself you need some space and some grace. And abusers love to push for answers. So when they notice the shift and the change within you, they're going to poke even more. They're going to prod. They love to trigger you, and they're absolutely relentless in doing this. It's just what they do. And they don't give up and walk away and go, oh, they set a boundary in place. Okay, let me go find someone else. If they were able to use you once, they do believe in their minds that they're able to use you forever. So remember, you're dealing with an emotionally immature childlike adult. So someone who learned never to accept that the answer is no, someone who never learned boundaries, and if they ask something of you, they're not going to give you time to reflect on it because they know that you probably need there's this everything takes processing, there's processing time, but they're going to expect an answer from you right away because that they know have triggered you. And then what's the answer, right? They need it immediately. They need it now. And you're going to think, well, gosh, what's wrong with me? If they say, hey, I need you to do this. And you're thinking, well, hold on, wait a minute. I've got all these other things I need to do. And again, it's going to poke and trigger you because you're thinking, wait a minute, I'm doing all these other things you asked me to do. When do you want me to do that? And they're like, yeah, yesterday. I already asked you a million times. Did you not hear me? What's wrong with you? And you just, right? So you're going to need time to process things. You may have a million things going on. And that's one of the other tactics that an abuser will use is they want something from you immediately. They want it now. And they don't care about you. They don't care that you have all these other million things going on. It's all about them. It's about them all the time. And with them, there's always anger, there's always arguments. And regardless of how much you try to please and how much you try to take on and how much you try to do for them, it becomes this disease to please. And those unhealed places within you will react to that and fight back with the same emotions that they're giving you. So remember, they're immature, they're underdeveloped emotionally. They're never fully emotionally developed because a fully emotionally developed person would have grace and space and be able to cooperate, communicate, connect in a healthy way. But you're dealing with them. You'll notice that they always play the victim. Any engagement with them, there are always so many signs. And one of the biggest that you'll notice is that they're always the victim. They're always the one who's been hurt. They're always the one who's been wronged. And they're going to make you feel guilty and start to feel the shame when you give any pushback, when you say you need space, and make it look like they were the ones that were harmed and you were the one that hurt them. They're playing the victim. And when they play the victim, it serves a great purpose for them. It's a great benefit to them because it allows them to not take any responsibility and face the facts that they're using and manipulating you. So here's one of the really, really important things to remember. It's not personal. And I know that's easier like said than done and said than believed, but it's not. It's really, really hard, however, in these situations when you are still holding on to, well, no, I'm a good person. Why did these things happen to me? And you haven't yet done the inner work at the unconscious level to heal. It's really difficult to not take those things personally because it is personal. Like your personal inner wounds are triggered, but it's not a personal thing. This is about them and them not having the capability or the emotional intelligence or the wherewithal to take and accept responsibility themselves. And when you start implementing boundaries and when you start healing those inner places within you, you can expect that they're going to push back even harder. They're going to retaliate. They're going to play the victim even more. And you're going to get that backlash even more. So it's vastly important, again, to really put in the unconscious work to heal and work on yourself. So you're going to find when they're in that state of playing the victim, and they're in it a lot, they're in it all the time, they're going to try and negotiate with you when they notice that you're starting to push back and kind of level up and educate and put boundaries in place. So here's a really important key aspect is to not fall back. So when they seem to be working with you or negotiating with you or understanding you and where you're coming from and making promises and saying things like, I get it, I'm going to work on myself. I need work too. No one's perfect. And you're going to think, wow, maybe they are starting to get it. Maybe things are starting to click into place for them. That's a trap every time. It's a trap. Again, it's another web that you may find yourself caught in if you don't know that that's a trap. When they seem to start working with you or working on themselves or agreeing with you and going to counseling and trying to negotiate with you, what they're actually doing is studying you. They're studying you and they're learning about you, and they're going to see if you're going to truly stand your ground or not. They're going to learn about where your weaknesses are because They know you have them. We all have them. And they're going to study those weaknesses and learn about them and see where you're vulnerable. Because you may be getting stronger over here, working on those vulnerabilities and turning them into strengths, but they're going to find another vulnerability and weakness, like a different door they're going to try to start to go in, because you've started to, you've closed and locked this door, and they've in their mind's gone, that's fine, watch this. And they're going to go and find another place within you. So they're going to seem to work with you for a time and seem to get better and improve. But what they're doing is studying you, and like, it's almost like Jenga, like they're going and pushing on other places within you to try and push that to get what they want. So because they've been able to open those doors within you for all this time and for far too long, you close it, lock it, tell them, no, you can't do that anymore. Then they're going to metaphorically go around and start to knock on all the other doors, try and open them or push those little Jenga blocks through. They're going to find another way, a different way. And if they find that and they get back in, you may feel completely devastated. It may feel like all that energy and effort that you put in is just gone, is wasted, and it's not. So keep going. Do not beat yourself up when that happens. Again, take it as a learning lesson. Thank you for triggering me. This has showed me another place within me that needs more work and healing. And you may be thinking, oh my gosh, I can't do this, right? And really convinced that they're getting on a better track and that they're really changing. But a true emotional manipulator, a true narcissist, a true abuser does not have the ability to go down that path and really transform and heal themselves. You may be doing that yourself and thinking, well, if I can do it, they can do it. But they don't want to do it. In order to change, you have to first want to change. They don't want to change. They want to continue to poke and prod and use you and take those things from you. They want to continue on that same path. You don't, because you can't take it anymore, but they can, and they actually thrive off of it and they love it. So when these tactics fail and they can't get what they want from you any longer, watch out. This is when the real manipulation and abuse begins. And if you thought it was bad before, you need to watch out, because they're going to continue knocking on all those doors, and they're going to continue to try and get what they used to be able to get from you so easily. And you may be holding on to hope that things are going to get better. They're not with this person. They can get better within you. So that's an okay to hope to hold on to, is that you can change and transform and stop getting stuck and caught in these traps. But holding on to hope that they will change, you're just going to continue to find yourself in the same place. So you're going to continue to see the same reflection in your external world that's representing in your internal world. So that's why this work has to be done internally if you want anything externally to change in your life. But when this happens, this is when the bullying, this is when the ante is ramped up. This is when the name calling, this is when the threats begin. It all gets worse from here, because what you've done by setting a boundary with an emotional manipulator and abuser is you've poked the bear. You've really, really upset their unhealed inner child. So think about it. If you have children, if you have your own child, when they want something and you say no, they throw a temper tantrum, and then they ask you again and again and again and again, and you say no, 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 no. That temper tantrum just gets greater the more you say no. And that's essentially what you're dealing with. You're dealing with that type of person. When you're dealing with an emotional manipulator and abuser, they're going to throw a tantrum, they're going to kick, they're going to scream, they're going to cry, they're going to smear your name, they're going to lie about you, and they're going to promise, it depends on the person, to go to the ends of the earth to destroy you, to take everything from you, to like wipe you out, just so you can see how almighty and powerful they are. And that is when, with the person being abused, when fear can really, really set in, and when you can get really, really afraid. And you may think, well, it's already been this bad, what else are they going to do? And your mind will start to go down these crazy dark rabbit holes, and your fear sets in, panic sets in, and you get stuck in that fear and that panic. And that's when that fight, flight, freeze center in your mind, that amygdala in your mind and your brain starts to go into hyperdrive or overdrive, and you can start to have panic attacks, anxiety attacks. You can spiral into depression, into this darkness. So again, if you're already there, or if it's going down that road and leading there, what you need to do is to do the inner work to heal at the unconscious level so that your internal world reflects externally, and so that you're broken out of those patterns and those cycles and not continuing to do the same things that you did that got you into that situation with a manipulator in the first place. Changing your internal world changes your external world. It changes everything. It changes how much you love yourself, right? It allows you to love yourself and trust yourself and believe in yourself in a way that you never did before. So again, reprogramming and working at the unconscious level with your mind, not just the conscious level, is so important, and really truly transforms the abuser. That's the only way to ever change an abuser is to change yourself. They're not going to change, but when they can't get from you what they used to be able to get from you anymore, they will go somewhere else. They will attach to new supply and connect to someone else. Doesn't mean that they'll leave you alone forever. They're going to come back and do that because that's what they do. But you will respond instead of react. So when your internal dialogue, when that inner voice inside your mind starts telling you different things, starts playing a different tape and singing a different tune, your internal belief system, everything changes. And then that's how to change and break free from the emotional manipulator and abuser. And all of that can be done. And it doesn't take years and years and years and years to do it. That's exactly what I specialize in. That's what the people that I work with is transforming internally, getting those internal breakthroughs. And that's the most profound impact that you can make, not only in your life, but to stop those emotional abusers and manipulators from even coming into your life at all. So how to stop being manipulated and abused? Do that inner work at the unconscious level. Work on yourself to heal those inner wounds and triggers, those places that they were poking and prodding within you, and those places within you that you became unglued and derailed. And if that's what you're ready for, I'd love to connect with you. There is more information in the description below this video. Until then, I hope that you have found this video and this information helpful to you wherever you are along your journey and along your path, and look forward to connecting with you very soon. Take care, my friends.